Issa Mcguire's heart was sick as she took a last look around her mother's apartment, saying goodbye to the space she had once called home, and that would soon be empty after Goodwill came to pick up the boxes. Walking out into the night, she could hardly believe her mother's life had been reduced to those few possessions she'd seen in her mother's final residence. Among other belongings Issa had chosen to keep had been a leather keepsake box, about the same size as a large wooden cigar box, and a cardboard box full of papers. She'd taken a peek inside both, but had found some of the information shocking. Surely the extensive criminal activities listed inside the topmost manila envelope in the banker's box had to be wrong. She knew her father had been a smuggler, but that had been a way of life. The other charges, well, those made no sense. Something, somewhere, must clarify all that had gone so wrong. She couldn't trust her own childhood memories, and wasn't at all sure she could believe the papers found in her mother's belongings either. Some things just didn't add up. Back in her vehicle, jammed full of her mother's possessions and memories, she hurriedly got into the driver's seat and slowly drove toward her small cabin, and away from the remnants of that era of her life. After years of the concrete city, she couldn't do it anymore. She had died a little every day she was forced to exist without the space and sky that was secondary to her soul. Such an elemental thing, but to her it was the main priority. She'd made it through school, she'd made it through her degrees, and now she was beholden to no one. Except for the birds, they were part of her soul. At the nondescript turnoff to her road, she slowed for the corner and bounced hard, wishing there had been more money so she could have filled the pothole and done a better cleanup of the driveway. Not too much, though. She certainly didn't choose to pour down concrete or asphalt. Maybe a layer of gravel for the tires to grab in winter. All she wanted was a little more ease of living, but without being too modern. Her cabin illuminated in the headlights of her car. She could hear the birds already crying to her. Humbug, the huge snowy owl who'd crawled inside her heart and made a place for himself, sat on a corner of the cabin's roof, staring at her. Roash, the beautiful falcon she'd found in the field, sat on a fence post. He too was waiting for her. She knew the golden eagle would be around somewhere. And then there was Gillian, the tiny, saw-wet owl who wouldn't be far away. Smaller than the others of her kind, a little more damaged than the other birds of any kind, the one who needed her just as much as she needed her birds. Leaving the vehicle on for the headlights to shine on her front door, she quickly moved to the cabin and back to the car. It might be summertime, but once the sun went down, it didn't matter where you were in this area of Colorado. A chill settled in. Inside, she lit the wood stove and put on the tea kettle. She had electricity but used it sparingly, choosing instead to use kerosene lamps. She wasn't against some modern conveniences, but she didn't appreciate the related monthly bills that came her way. Until she had a regular paycheck, she had to find and save the pennies wherever she could. So far, she had yet to discover anything of her mother's worth selling, and she hadn't figured out where her mother's bank accounts were. She'd unloaded the big box of paperwork, hoping the information would be in there, along with the answers she needed on her father's criminal activities. But she didn't want to look inside. She couldn't bear it. Not right now. Not with the grief of losing not only her only living relative, but her mother. They'd had a complicated relationship, but when it came down to it, she'd been family. Issa wanted to keep the little bit of fantasy about her father for as long as possible. Not that she had much in the way of illusions. It was hard enough to face the reality of losing her mother. How could a woman in good health and only 62 have a heart attack and die, while Issa was at the university collecting the paperwork on her doctorate?